Hello everyone, this is Mr. Spooky, and I'm sorry for interrupting the intro, but I just wanted to take the time out of the intro to say I am trying to give credit to any of the writers of these stories that you're about to listen to. Every single one of their stories from Reddit is in the description, so if you want to go check those out, they're there. This was actually an idea introduced to me by another person on Reddit who told me that it's better this way, and I kind of figured it was. I don't know why I didn't do it before, but now I'm going to try to give credit to the actual writers of the stories, just so you guys know. So if you guys want to go check out those stories, like I said, in the description. Also, if you guys want to check out any other Reddit stories, that's also in the description. Well, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Hopefully you guys enjoy listening. For some brief background, I'm an 18-year-old male, and this encounter occurred when I was around 13 years old. Every year, when the 4th of July rolls around, me and my family would go to a friend's house to celebrate. The friend and his family are quite wealthy, and they live in a large house about a half a mile into the woods. The 4th of July parties at their house were always huge events with around 15 to 20 families attending. The younger people at the parties were either around my age or high school age. I typically hung out with my friend Gavin and his sister Trina, who I had a crush on at the time. They were the kids of the family friend that had owned the house. On this particular 4th of July, the older kids decided they wanted to go out into the woods, and of course, all of the younger kids wanted to go too, me included. Keith, one of the older kids, agreed to us tagging along under the condition that we wouldn't chicken out and run away. All of the younger kids agreed, and the whole group journeyed into the woods. Keith was leading us down a trail to a nearby pond when Trina grabbed my hand. 13-year-old me turned beet red in the darkness, but I could also tell that something was very wrong. Trina said, "There's someone in the woods. I just saw him. He's a big man." She pointed out onto the trees, but I didn't see anything. I squeezed her hand tightly and told her that she was just seeing things. Trina had always been the sort to scare easily, and I thought nothing of it. The group finally made it to the pond. We only had one flashlight with us, but by this time everyone's eyes had adjusted to the blackness of the woods. The group finally made it to the pond. We only had one flashlight with us though, but by this time everyone's eyes had adjusted to the blackness of the woods. We all just sat around talking and goofing off. We occasionally heard sounds out of the woods, but we just figured it was a local deer population. Most of us are children of deer hunters, and the area was near our dad's hunting land, so it all fit. Eventually, everyone settled down and Keith started telling us a scary story. It was something about kids getting lost in the woods. Nice one, Keith. As the story continued, Tina's grip on my hand got tighter and tighter. She was practically shaking when one of Keith's friends tossed a log onto the pond right at the story's climax. Everyone jumped and screamed, and eventually we all started laughing at how scared we had gotten. Suddenly, another distinct laugh joined ours. It was a deep, throaty chuckle that echoed off the empty space of the pond. We all stopped laughing and sat in silence. I looked around and my eyes locked onto a large, black mass that could only be a human standing at the edge of the woods around the pond. "That was a good one. You even startled me," said the mass. The voice sounded similar to the chuckle from before. The air seemed to freeze for what felt like eternity. No one moved. It felt like Trina was trying to shatter the bones in my hand. Suddenly, as if time had started again, we all scrambled up and ran. We ran as fast and hard as we could. But it didn't seem fast enough. We could hear heavy footfalls behind our group, heavier than any of us could produce. The man was following us. After what seemed like hours, we all exited the woods and ran into the brightly lit driveway. We watched the edge of the woods while Keith did a head count. Trina swears to this day that she saw the man standing at the edge of the woods, watching us, before turning back and walking away. This remains one of the scariest experiences of my life. I like to tell myself that the man was just passing by and had no ill intentions. But why did he chase after us? If he was the one who Trina saw on the way to the pond, why did he follow us there? I'll never know what his intentions were or why he really was there. So chuckling creepsman? Let's not meet again. I spent the day with my relatives and left to go home at around 11 p.m. The drive home is straightforward. It's a 2-hour drive down a single-lane highway. The speed limit is 80 kilometers per hour, but everyone drives around 100 kilometers per hour, and the cops don't bother pulling them over. I got on the highway and set my cruise control to 100, and almost immediately, a truck came flying up behind me and started tailgating me. I assumed he would pass me once we hit a straight stretch road, but once we went through 3 straight stretches with no other traffic, I realized he wasn't gonna just pass me. I assumed he was one of those people who were afraid of passing, so on the next straight stretch, I put my signal on and started braking and pulling over into the shoulder, assuming he would finally pass. He started pulling over right behind me, which freaked me out, and I decided not to pull over, but to just keep on driving. By the time I tried pulling over, he had been tailgating me for around 20 kilometers. I was annoyed and slightly scared, so I decided to speed up and hoped he would fall back. I sped up all the way to 140 kilometers per hour, but he was still right on my bumper. I realized how dangerous this was, so I slowed back down to 100 kilometers per hour instead. Now he's been on my tail for close to 50 kilometers, so I decided to slow right down and hope it frustrates him enough to pass. I drove another 10 kilometers at 40 kilometers per hour through several passing zones, and he was still on my tail. I was getting really scared and wanted to call the cops, but my cell phone was dead and I was in the middle of nowhere. Finally, I saw an exit after being followed for around 70 kilometers. I took it at the very last second and managed to lose the truck. I don't know why he was tailgating me, but I hope we never meet again. This happened a few weeks ago. I live in the country and the bus stop for school was right in front of my house. My neighbor came over and we put our kids in the bus. I was drinking coffee and she stayed to smoke and chat on my porch, and then she left. About a minute after she had left, I heard her hunting dogs bark. I didn't think anything of it because of squirrels and other little animals that they would bark at constantly. Then my neighbor called me. I'm still on the porch enjoying nicotine and caffeine, and I hear her voice frantically saying someone was running from her home to mine. I saw him as soon as she had said it. One of my pit bulls was outside and tried her best to run after him. She's 9 with very bad hips though. My neighbor's running up at this time too, and I called the police. Thefts have been happening constantly. Diesel gas, yard equipment, a miniature pony, all of them were stolen. My neighbor headed back to her house to see if anything was stolen in her yard, and I waited outside on my porch for the police. I decided to walk right behind my house to our shed to see if it perhaps had been broken into, thinking surely the dude kept running. I was oh so wrong. I heard branches breaking and looked towards our woods, thinking it was my neighbor's dog still, but nope, it was him coming straight for me. I stupidly ran up my back porch to my back door and realized that it was locked. I didn't have time to be able to run safely back down, so I jumped off the top railing. I have patellar tendonitis, which means a bad knee, so I was stumbling, running, and screaming for my neighbor. She came running with her gun and yelled that she was gonna shoot, and then the dude ran. Cops got there about 20 minutes after I first called. We seriously live in the sticks. Cops don't even have radars here, and that's the country cops. And they never caught him to this day. So guy in the woods who chased after me in my own yard? Let's never meet again. If we do, I have full permission to shoot or release my younger pit bull who definitely will cause damage. This still gives me cold bumps thinking about it again. The guy's face and body movement while I was yelling to leave and go was extremely creepy and disturbing. I never go outside alone anymore without my dog, True Lay, with me. I've been browsing Reddit, and it's got me thinking of all the strange things that have happened to me over the course of my life. So I thought I'd share a few encounters that have really creeped me out. This particular incident happened when I was very young, maybe 4 or 5 years old. Obviously, I was too young then to appreciate the potential danger, but thinking on it now, I know that I'm probably pretty lucky to be here to type this out. I grew up in a small town in Indiana in the early 80s, Everyone in my neighborhood pretty much knew everyone else. My neighborhood was mostly older, retired people, but there were a couple of younger folks who had kids my own age. I grew up in a small town in Indiana in the early 80s. Everyone in my neighborhood pretty much knew everyone else. My neighborhood was mostly made up of older, retired people, but there were a couple of younger folks who had kids my own age that I would play with on occasion. The way the neighborhood was set up made it to where you would have to turn into an entrance in order to reach the houses. Once you were in there, the neighborhood looped around until finally coming back around to the same entrance to leave the neighborhood. Whether it was to save the mailman the effort of driving in a huge circle or not, I'm not sure, but the mailboxes for all the houses were out by the entrance. This meant that to check your mail, you would either have to drive or walk down to the end of the road, which, from our house, took about 10 minutes round trip on foot. This particular Saturday morning, I was sitting in the living room finishing up my bowl of cereal and watching cartoons. I remember that I was watching Thundercats, which was my personal favorite. My mom was the only other person home and decided that she wasn't going to walk down to check the mail and asked me if I wanted to go. Of course, I said no because I couldn't miss the Thundercats. Keep in mind, this was the 80s, so my mom didn't really think twice about leaving 5-year-old me alone for 10 minutes to go check the mail. My mom left and I was still happily watching my show. It wasn't maybe 3 or 4 minutes after she left that the front door, which opened directly into our living room, cracked open. Just enough for a middle-aged lady, I'd say she was probably in her early 40s or so, to poke her head in. This, of course, startled me. I'd never seen her before in my entire life. I knew all of our neighbors, and she wasn't one of them. She grinned at me and said something along the lines of, "Hi, sweetie. I saw your mommy leave. Are you here all by yourself?" I was told never to talk to strangers, so I basically just sat there staring at her. She opened the door a little further and stepped just inside. She was wearing what looked like mechanic's coveralls, which is really weird now that I think about it. She started talking to me about really weird stuff that, at the time, I didn't really understand. She was saying things like, "Sometimes adults do grown-up things with pretty little girls. Have you ever done grown-up things? Has anyone ever touched you in your special place? Are your parents good to you? Do they hurt you? Have they ever hit you?" I remember her telling me that she had kids my age and that they were going to the park and asked me if I wanted to go too. It was about that time that I heard our neighbor, an older gentleman in his late 70s named Walter, yelling and asking her who she was and what she was doing. She quickly stepped back outside and ran back to her car without even shutting the door to the house. Walter came inside and waited with me until my mom got back from checking the mail and told her what had happened. They called the police. Walter had taken the time to note the make and model of the car, but hadn't had the time to write down the plate number. I don't know if they ever caught the lady, so creepy, potential pedo lady, if you're still out there somewhere, let's not meet. "3 years ago, I thought I joined an amazing church. I was never a Jesus freak, and in fact, I used to make fun of them as a kid, referring to them as Bible thumpers. During college, that changed. I felt the need to form a relationship with God after the deaths of close family members. It couldn't have been better timing because I ended up at a new school and a new job where I eventually met Joanna. Joanna was an instant friend. We clicked right away. We shared a passion for music, were studying the same major, and could talk for hours about anything. Joanna and I hung out for about 6 months before I started to notice anything out of the ordinary. Basically, I would never see her on the weekends because she told me she had devoted them to her church and youth group. I didn't think that anything was strange, but I was still curious and asked her what her religion was. I didn't think it was strange, but I was still curious and asked her what her religion was. She told me it was non-denominational, then quickly changed the subject. Joanna started showing up to work less and less, and she started missing classes. She always appeared tired when she did show up or looked completely drained or out of it. Rumors had started around school and work that she was on drugs. I knew this was false because both of us had a disdain for drugs and others who partied hard like that. Joanna had less and less time to spend with friends, so I would rarely see her. About 1 month like this, she called me out of the blue to go to Denny's. We met up and she pulled out her phone and showed me a YouTube video of a recent volunteer activity she did with her church group. Joanna explained to me that she volunteered a lot at her church and it took up a lot of her time. The video quality was excellent for a church video and it played almost like a short film. The passion she had talking about all the good deeds they do and how fun it was piqued my interest. I asked her for the name of the church. Again, she did not disclose, but said non-denominational Christian. She asked me to come with her right now, because it was better that I see it for myself. I found it strange because it was 10 p.m. at night on a Wednesday. I ended up into a small office or warehouse-looking building. I found it strange that a church wouldn't have any signs or any pictures of Jesus in the space. It looked like a child's daycare or learning center. Immediately, women rushed over and hugged me. It was unreal. I later learned that I got love-bombed. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a corner of a room with a woman slightly older and Joanna. She had a dry erase board and started teaching me about the Bible. The Bible study made sense, but soon after, she asked me if I was ready to be baptized. It was now around 11:30 p.m. and I felt some sort of obligation. I had no ride home and no idea where it was. And these happy, shiny people were cooking for me and teaching me the Bible. How could I say no? I was hesitant, but the intensity grew and I could feel the attitude start to change to desperation. They promised it would only take a few minutes and that God was watching, and I may die if I deny being baptized after learning the truth. So like an idiot, I agreed and was rushed into a bathroom to get changed into a white robe. When I let them know I had changed, they ushered me into a bathtub where a small Asian man walked in. Apparently, he was a pastor. He told me that I shouldn't be nervous and that the water would be warm. I knelt into the shower with the lights dimmed while the rest of the women came in wearing veils over their heads, singing in some strange monotone voices. I heard him baptize me in the name of an Asian god, and that's when I got freaked out. Once I left, I was baffled and nervous. It was such an intense feeling. I was still stuck there as Joanna had driven me way out into another country, so I had no idea how to leave. They made me more food and later told me that the name I was baptized under would be explained to me when I returned to study more. Everyone kept telling me how I was part of the family now. I ended up returning and being pretty heavily brainwashed by this group, to the point where I felt like they really were my family. I did things I'm not very proud of. I helped recruit people and spent hours and days and weeks there. Eventually, I found out that Joanna was just a recruiter, which I soon also turned out to be. Someone who just forms fake friendships to bring more young women into this group. I escaped mentally and deprogrammed in disfellowship. It was a truly haunting experience that no young female should ever have to go through. I still see Joanna time to time with her vicious wolf pack of preaching women on campus and at malls. I usually hide or run the other way. Joanna, let's not ever meet again.